Good morning, everyone. So let's start today's editorial session. Before that, we have thought of the day. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So education is mandatory. We all know that. Okay, so the heading of today's editorial is Era of War is Over. That means the war between Russia and Ukraine is over. On PM Modi Putin meeting, India did well to caution Vladimir Putin over the Ukraine war. So the war between Russia and Ukraine uh, is over, and in the meeting between Modi and Putin in the SCO summit, they discuss about it and caution. India did well to caution Vladimir Putin. Caution means to warn somebody for something. So yeah, let's start today's editorial. It will be interesting, definitely. So in the first para, what we have seen compared to its relatively low-key past. So what low-key means? It's an adjective. It means quiet and not wanting to attract a lot of attention. So the past of SEO Summit wasn't that uh, uh, famous. It was low-key. The summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that means SCO, Council of Heads of State in Samarkand took place. So Samarkand is a city in Uzbekistan, which is known for its mosque and all. And there, SEO Summit organized this year took place in the crosshairs of international attention, and different countries to participate. And what is SEO actually? If I have to tell you guys briefly, then the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a Eurasian political, economic, and security organization in terms of geographic scope and population. It is the world's largest regional organization, covering approximately 60% of the area of Eurasia, that means Europe plus Asia, and 40% of the world population and more than 30% of global GDP. And currently we have 8 members. China, India joined around 2017. Pakistan also joined around 2017. Russia, and and 4 more, like the Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. So this year happened in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. Okay, so let's go to the next para. Apart from the SEO's new agreement on regional engagement, discussions among the 8 members, including 4 Central Asian states, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, focused on inducting Iran as a member. So here in this para, it mentioned that there are 8 members, including Central Asian states, for example, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. They focused on inducting Iran as a member. I mean, this year in 2022, they focused inducting Iran as a member of SCO. So what inducting means? Inducting, it's used as a verb here. It means introducing someone formally or with a special ceremony to an organization or group or to beliefs or idea. So they try to uh, induct Iran as a member of SCO in 2022, broadening the SCO dialogue partners to West and South Asia, and trying to increase the partners to West and South Asia, and on trade, tourism, and counter-terrorism in the region, and they also discuss on trade, tourism, and counter-terrorism in the region. However, more focus was on the bilateral meetings on the sidelines. So, what bilateral meetings? That means the meeting between two different countries. On as this was the first such major conference that Russian President Vladimir Putin attended since the Ukraine war. So, why it's so crucial this time? Because Vladimir Putin, who is the president of Russia, he attended for the first time after Ukraine war, as well as first as well as part of the first visit abroad by Chinese President Xi Jinping since the and in this summit, uh, Chinese President Xi Jinping also uh, took part. So it was really crucial this year, this SU summit. Since that, so let's go to the next para, please, because sentence isn't complete yet. Yeah. Since the COVID-19 pandemic and Taiwan tension. So after COVID-19 pandemic and Taiwan tension, the president of China, Xi Jinping, took part in this summit. So this is the picture of this summit. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's attendance was equally meaningful, given that it was the first time he met Mr. Putin since the war. Uh, and the author um, written about Narendra Modi's attendance is also meaningful. Why? Because he got the first uh, chance to meet Mr. Putin since the war. I mean, the war between Russia and Ukraine. And Mr. Xi Jinping, since the standoff at the LSE in 2020. Hope you guys are aware of this LSE in 2020, which occurred. LSE full form is Line of Actual Control. And if I have to tell you a little bit about this, then it's also the same. It's a it's begin on 5th May 2020. Chinese and Indian troops engaged in aggressive melee face-off and skirmishes. The skirmishes means the fight between these two countries, India and China, at location along the Sino-Indian border, which is near uh, Ladakh. So after LSE, this is the first time when Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping joined together one summit. So, what summit means actually? We know about meeting, but whenever meeting happen between the leaders of two different countries, then it's known as summit. So it's really meaningful, and mm, the attendance of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also uh, important this time. Why? Because he got the chance to meet Mr. Putin as well as Mr. Xi Jinping this time. Since LSE 2020. This was also the first time he came face to face with Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and speculation was rife that he would hold meetings with India's adversaries. So this was also the first time our Prime Minister Narendra Modi came face to face with Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and speculation, which means like assumption, was rife. Rife means it's also an adjective. It means very common or frequent that he would hold meetings with India's adversaries. I mean, against like India's enemies. Okay, so let's go to the next para. So that's this summit was really important for us. So while the meeting with Mr. Sarif or Mr. Xi Jinping did not materialize, but unfortunately, Narendra Modi didn't get the chance to met with Mr. Sarif as well as Mr. Xi. Western capital focused on his Putin meeting, but Mr. Modi get the chance to met with Vladimir Putin. Mr. Modi's opening comment to Mr. Putin that the era of war has ended has been read as an admonition. So, what admonition means? It means a firm warning or reprimand. It seems like warning, but when Mr. Modi comment as era of war has ended, so mostly people thought that it's a warning of Russia's war in Ukraine. However, it would be wrong to read Mr. Modi's engagement with Mr. Putin as kind of public shaming, and it was wrong if we think like that Mr. Modi's engagement with Putin as like public shaming. No, it wasn't correct, but rather an expression at the concern over the war. He just gave, Mr. Modi just gave us his expression of, of this war, something that Mr. Putin said he understand. And Mr. Modi mentioned that war wasn't good for the country, for whole over the world. So it wasn't good. So Mr. Putin also mentioned that he understand. Okay, so let's go to the next para, please. A day before, Mr. Putin had also said to Mr. Xi Jinping that he understood China's concerns, indicating Russia's realization of the need to effect a ceasefire and dialogue. And a day before the meeting between Putin and Mr. Modi, Mr. Putin already mentioned a day before that he also understood China's concern, indicating that Russia's realization of the need to effect a ceasefire and dialogue. Ceasefire is mandatory. The end of this war is mandatory. Otherwise, impact will be. We already aware of the impact which this war between Russia and Ukraine impact badly all over the world. India now comes into prominence as chair of the SCO and is making preparation for next year SCO summit ahead of the G20 summit in New Delhi. So it's a good news for us that the next SCO summit held in New Delhi, which held before G20 summit. So India is preparing itself for the next year SEO summit, which will held in New Delhi. So let's go to the next para. India needs to ensure the participation of all SEO members, including China and Pakistan. So India need to ensure that in the next year, when SEO summit will held in New Delhi, China, Pakistan all should participate here in New Delhi, despite the tension which will entail some diplomatic elbow grease. Elbow grease is it means efforts by um, okay elbow grease by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar in the next few months. So now it's time to give efforts from by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar need to give a lot of effort in the next few months, beginning this week at the UN General Assembly. India's pitch to the SEO for connectivity with the Eurasian region hinges on its development of Cerebral port through Iran and traversing US sanctions. So what hinges on mean? It means depend on. So now India speaks to the SEO for connectivity with Eurasian region depends on its development of server port through Iran and traversing US sanctions, while still competing with the China Pakistan backed transit routes through Gurdwar on terrorism. India will have to ensure that SEO walks the talk on building a new consolidated list of terrorist groups. So, on terrorism also, India need to think, walk the talk. That means whatever they say, they need whatever is said in SEO, it need to implement as well. And we need to think on terrorism groups also, according to the author of this editorial. And okay, can you please scroll it up? An area where it is frequently thwarted by signers. So what thwarted means? It means stop something from happening or someone from doing something. So what we have seen, China usually throughout this issue. I mean, they didn't like to talk about this terrorism and all, but we need to talk about it in the next SEO summit. Okay, so let's go to the next one, next para. Meanwhile, New Delhi will also have to balance its ties, keeping Western patterns in the Quad. So, meanwhile, uh, New Delhi will also have to balance its ties with Western partners in the Quad. So, the partners in Quad like US, Australia, Japan, and other groupings we assured, especially as the polarization between the US EU coalition. So, especially uh, give we need to think on the polarization between the US and EU coalition and the Russia China led combine continues to grow. So, if more countries will join and if the collaboration will be stronger, then all the countries will grow uh, nicely. I mean, if the combination will happen. So yeah, this is the all about today's editorial. Now it's time for tune of editorial. So who would like to tell us the tune of editorial? Before that, let me tell you briefly what phrases we have learned here. We have learned hinge on, which means to depend on something. We have learned in the crosshairs. In the first para, we have seen that in the crosshair of international attention, it means in a position in which other people are eager to criticize or attack. Okay, and we have learned walks the talk, which means to do what one said one could do or would do. I mean, whatever said, it need to implement it. Okay, so yeah, and we have learned one more dragged into, which means make someone become involved in situation. So yeah, this is all about today's editorial. Now it's time for um tone of the editorial. So who would like to tell us the tone of today's editorial? Anyone who would like to tell us the tone of editorial? What happened? No one. Is there anyone who have
Analytically informative.
Analytical or informative? Okay. Okay, thanks a lot for your point. Yeah, I also wanted to tell this one only. Author give us a lot of information as well as it's analytical as also. So yeah, this is all about today's editorial. And thanks to all the participants for joining us and giving us your crucial time. And please don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. So you will get the link here in our main group or in my channel also. So yeah, thanks a lot for participating.